Video games are, at least in my opinion, the most immersive kind of storytelling that humanity has ever dreamed up. They're a culmination of every art form we've ever conceived, from painting, sculpting, composing, writing, performing, animating, and so on. Minus cooking or candle making, I suppose. A good video game is a well-crafted experience in a world that lives and breathes of its own accord, or at least maintains the illusion that it does. When someone engages with other types of media, for the most part, choice is only delegated to the characters within that specific work. But when playing a video game, that all changes. The player, you, have to interact with that universe personally, sometimes intimately. Even if the decision is as simple as when to press a button or which path to take at an intersection, that action is your own. Controlling the main character, or in some cases inserting yourself into a game's narrative, makes the entire experience far more personal, more memorable, and oftentimes deeply impactful. For all intents and purposes, your in-game avatar is a piece of yourself that has been injected into a fantasy, but one that can feel as real as the nose on your face. So, how could these feelings of immersion be increased any further? Well, my dear viewer, through the use of a virtual reality headset. If you've never had the pleasure of playing around with a fancy, albeit goofy-looking headset capable of converting a very 2D world into one with genuine depth, or simply can't handle them due to motion sickness, then it's a little difficult to describe how a VR game looks. 3D spaces can actually become truly 3D, instead of providing you with an illusion that, say, a hole in the ground is actually concave. You can spin objects around, stick your head through windows, and when the need arises, crouch down to make yourself smaller. Sure, it can be difficult to ignore a cumbersome, sometimes heavy object strapped to the front of your face. But even with that weight in your awareness, VR still provides a window into an alternate reality. A virtual one. So, when I saw that LivingFray had created a mod that fully converts Halo Combat Evolved into a VR experience, I knew I had to give it a try. I'd like to extend a huge thanks to them for creating this lovely modification, because without them, this video would not exist. There's a link in the description that will take you to all of the relevant information you'll need if you want to give this a try yourself. Okay, time for just a little bit of background. I've been playing Halo since day one, when it first released on the original Xbox all those years ago. My first experience with it was after my third rotation around the sun, and a lifelong obsession was born as a result. With that said, I've played and beaten Halo Combat Evolved more times than I can begin to calculate. And in some cases, I've beaten it in really, really asinine ways. See my video where I beat Halo CE on Legendary without killing any grunts as an example. Trust me when I say it is much harder than it sounds. My point is, I know this game well, very well, and it's this knowledge that led me to believe that I'd need to begin my over 100th playthrough in VR on the most punishing difficulty, Legendary. I had no idea what new challenges this would present, of which there would be many. Spoiler alert, this was no easy task. Without any inclination of what it would be like to actually understand the scale of the environments or fight the enemies in a much more in-your-face kind of way, I was effectively going in blind. Speaking of which, this mod only works with the original Gearbox PC port of Halo CE, so there are no skulls or features that were added with the Master Chief Collection, unfortunately. I felt like it was really important that I capture my first genuine reactions to the things I was seeing, or rather re-seeing, I suppose, so I streamed all of this live here on YouTube. If you want to see those, raw and unedited, I have a playlist with them all in the description. Streaming this was a bit of a challenge. Let me explain why real quick. Don't worry, I'll get to the gameplay soon, but if you're really impatient and don't want to hear some behind-the-scenes info, an integral part of this story, then there should be timestamps in the description and you can just jump ahead. Okay, are they gone? What a bunch of losers. Anyways, for the majority of this video, I used a Quest 2, which is a self-contained headset that is capable of playing games independently. There's no need for a PC. Halo CE VR is a mod for the PC version of the game though, so an additional piece of software is needed to play it with my Oculus device. One of the many apps that you can get on Quest devices is Virtual Desktop, and it's essential in making this all work. With a little bit of setup, and after installing it on both my headset and my PC, I was ready to stream my PC to my VR device using Virtual Desktop. Surprisingly, there's not any noticeable lag when doing this. Plus, Steam VR is such an excellent piece of software that it works seamlessly with other non-Valve made machines, meaning I was good to go. I'd also need a device capable of recording my voice for live reactions, so I just plugged in this cheap-ass $25 Xbox mic into my Quest's headphone jack, and voila. My spoken audio sounded good, but it came at the cost of the audio for me. You see, I could only hear the game through one ear, and the quality was less than stellar. But I did that all for you to augment the viewing experience.
You know how much I sacrificed?
With that, I officially began my first stream, but I forgot to make it public. It was private the entire time. We are in. Holy shit. What a fucking nightmare. The first thing I noticed just sitting in the main menu was the scale of everything. Sitting here with the halo ring as it spun around me, despite the fact that it's absolutely not to scale, was fascinating. I also quickly learned that cutscenes are very, very jarring and occasionally a bit nauseating. What would normally be a panning camera that transitions throughout each sequence is actually my head floating through the 3D space. Jump cuts and movement can be extremely disorienting as a result. Take the intro, for example. When the Pillar of Autumn flies forward and the camera begins to move towards the interior of the ship, I felt like I was about to fall over. It's like a weird glitch in the brain. Seeing movement like this and acceleration without actually feeling it tends to throw you off a little. Your body automatically attempts to adjust to the shift in movement even though there's no actual movement to adjust to. Oh god, I might need to close my eyes.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.
Oh my god, I'm gonna puke for real. Like I mentioned before, seeing things in VR quickly illustrates that objects and characters are certainly not to scale. Keys is utterly massive for no reason. Thanks to the fact that I can actually turn my head during cutscenes, I can accidentally clip through walls or look at things I'm not supposed to. Elements that would normally be out of frame often aren't, simply because my head isn't in a fixed position. You've probably noticed the small green polygon below me by now. That's used to indicate where my hitbox is supposed to be. It appears wherever you're standing when you launch the game, which was right by my computer, of course. My collision was a bit off at first because it didn't line up with the center of my play space, where I was standing. I was still able to walk around my room, but the green polygon and thus my hitbox didn't move along with me. Plus, thanks to my over-eagerness to begin, I neglected to read how the controls worked, so I fumbled a bit when it came to figuring out how to jump or swap weapons. Once I figured it out, the controls quickly became one of my favorite aspects about this mod. Many operations are accomplished through physical motions, something I'll explain a bit later once Past Me gets his shit together. The first of these mechanics that I discovered was crouching. How do I crouch? I just literally... I crouched like a real person. Yeah, I literally just needed to crouch in real life. Duh. Another odd thing I'm noticing now while going over the footage is that the menus and certain HUD elements didn't appear in the stream despite the fact that I could see them just fine in my headset. Any UI that was attached to my eyes and moved with my head, such as settings, health, shield, ammo count, and grenade indicators aren't visible now, but they were while I was playing. I'm not sure why that is, but there's not much I can do about it after the fact. You might have also noticed my weapon reticle flailing around. That's because it's attached to my right hand, and apparently I'm a spaz or just had too much caffeine. Something else that becomes immediately apparent is that Master Chief is fast as hell. Moving around feels ridiculous sometimes. Playing as Kelly would probably be utterly nauseating. Another thing, the Chief's head is massive. It's literally the width of my shoulders, which I just measured by the way. They're about 1.5 feet from edge to edge, or half a meter for those of you that use a system that isn't stupid. There's no way this is lore accurate. You're telling me his helmet, his head, is that large?
Good luck, Master Chief.
Ah!
Your architecture isn't much different from the Autumn's.
Don't get any funny ideas.
Ah! I'm inside
Don't
Chief,
keep it loaded, son. You'll have to find
I
out.
said gaily. Another cool, albeit a bit janky feature is the ability to two-hand weapons. I found it difficult to keep my left hand where it was supposed to be relative to the gun without actually having something to hold onto in real life. So generally, I opted to use each weapon one-handed. Reloading is also mapped to a button press rather than some kind of physical motion, unfortunately. Meleeing isn't though. You've got to punch enemies for real. How do I melee? Oh!
Fire in the hole!
Crouching and hiding behind objects is very cool. Actually, physically ducking and peeking over a barricade is so immersive. Thanks to the fact that I know the game so well, I didn't have many issues running through the Pillar of Autumn, even on Legendary. Though I was stuck with the plasma pistol the entire time thanks to the fact that I couldn't figure out how to swap weapons. Thankfully, that handy little sidearm in Halo CE is extremely deadly, and it didn't really inhibit my ability to stay alive. Plasma pistol is such a f***ing good gun in Halo CE, dude. We're just gonna abuse the shit out of it. Crouch jumping in VR is so much more difficult than it is normally. Having to physically squat in time with a jump is very tricky and wasn't something I was able to really get the hang of. And no, I'm not physically jumping in real life, in case you're wondering. Once I got into the maintenance access tunnels, I encountered a minor issue. I wasn't sure how to enable my flashlight, and let me tell you, these hallways are dark. I ended up using the light from my plasma pistol's projectiles to give me some much needed visual aid. Something that's worth mentioning. The stability was great through 99% of this run, which means I never really got any sort of motion sickness. In case you aren't aware, playing VR games with a frame rate lesser than 90 frames per second tends to cause weird headaches, and as a result, it's best to not play them for extended periods of time. I never had that problem though, and so I was able to continue for many hours in one sitting with no real consequences. Well, aside from some things I'll mention a little later. Like I said, I didn't really encounter much difficulty when playing through this mission, so about 40 minutes later I finished the Pillar of Autumn and made my way to Halo. Despite the fact that I wasn't feeling uncomfortable from playing, it was fairly late when I started my first stream, so I figured I'd wrap it up a little ways into the mission, and after doing something I've always wanted to do.
If we're lucky, the Covenant will believe that everyone aboard this lifeboat died in the crash.
I'm sitting, in case you were wondering. This is, wow. This is weird, but I've always wanted to do this. Just sit on the cliff here and take it all in, you know? Speedrun strategies are way harder to do in VR for some reason, and I'm not really sure why. It's kind of difficult to quantify. Something about being in the space throws off my timing for performing certain tricks. For example, I've never been good at this grenade jump, but I somehow botched it even more than I usually do while playing in VR. Immediately upon arriving at the first group of Marines, they all just straight up died, leaving me to deal with the incoming Covenant onslaught all by my lonesome. Normally, I'd just book it and head towards the obviously not a natural formation, but I really wanted to see what the Warthog was like in VR, and the only way to get it in a reasonable amount of time was to eliminate all Covenant forces in the area. After dying a couple of times, I decided to call it quits for the evening and start another stream in the not so distant future. But this time, I would actually remember to make it public. I also did some research and read the mod documentation to learn the controls instead of fumbling my way through everything like an idiot. Swapping weapons, as it turns out, is also a motion-controlled action. In order to do it, I had to physically reach behind my back with my right hand and press the side button on that particular controller. The time that it took to literally grab another weapon out of my quote-unquote backpack made things like noob combos pretty tricky. The time it took for me to reach around and take hold of my Magnum after hitting an elite with an overcharged plasma pistol bolt was generally just long enough for my quarry to run for cover before I could take another shot. But I don't even care because it is so cool feeling. Also, activating the flashlight is as easy as literally touching my head. As simplistic as that may be, I find it delightful. I had a weirdly difficult time with this section, and I'm really not sure why. I kept getting cornered or flanked. Normally, I'd just rush the dropships as they descended with a few grenades, but for some reason I wasn't feeling confident enough to try that strategy. I think I waited too long to make that feasible anyways. At one point, I was forced to take cover within one of the crashed Bumblebee drop pods as I was literally descended on by enemies. Sadly, my radar isn't visible in the stream, but trust me when I say it turned solid red, and suddenly I was playing a horror game. Something about being crouched down inside this vehicle reminded me of attempting to beat the game on Legendary many years ago when I was a much younger version of myself. I seem to recall employing this exact strategy back then, with the same result too: death. Like I'm already weak as shit. And they know it, they're gonna push me. Son of a bitch, man. God damn it. Eventually though, I triumphed, partly because of this Matrix-style dodge. I mean, just look at this shit. Did you saw that fucking dodge? As a reward for my efforts, Echo 419, the beautiful Carol Raleigh, hand-delivered me a Warthog. I was very eager to see how this would be handled in VR, and let me just say, it's terrible. Really terrible. I understand why it's like this, and I'm not trying to poo-poo LivingFray or anything when I talk about it, but man, oh man, are the controls awful. The perspective is super wonky too. Instead of being in first person, the camera sits in the same position it normally would while playing the game out of VR, resulting in this weird RC car kind of perspective. I don't hate the way it looks, but the way it handles is really bad. There's no sugarcoating it. Vehicles as a whole are not even remotely fun to drive. A problem that will be exacerbated much more in sections where they are required. I feel like I'm 5 years old again trying to drive this. When I was a kid, I remember playing this. I mean, like a little kid playing this shit and not being able to gain enough momentum to make this jump because I couldn't drive in a straight line. There we go, we're drifting. Aiming on turrets is also really awful, in case you were wondering. It's next to impossible to hit targets with any real accuracy. Again, I'm not really sure why, or rather how to describe it. For some reason, my camera kept spazzing out too, which is extremely off-putting from my perspective. Ah! What is happening? Yeah, this is janky. Oh god, I'm gonna die. One of the coolest aspects about playing this game in VR is being able to duck and lean around corners. Take this section for example. I know that several elites are waiting for me at the end of this hall, but thanks to my newfound ability to look around the corner, I'm presented with a brand new strategy that wouldn't be possible in the regular version of the game. Yes, that's so cool. Dude, that's so cool. Yeah, I just took out your buddy, you're next. A little while later, I found the sniper, which I was quite excited to get my hands on, but I couldn't remember how to activate the zoom feature. I ended up using it to no-scope for a little bit, but kept missing my shots because I'm trash, I guess. I swapped to the Magnum immediately after and accidentally figured out what I was doing wrong. Much like weapon swapping, this mechanic quickly became one of my most favorite features of the mod. When zooming, a small circle appears on top of or next to the gun. This ring contains the typical UI you'd see when scoping in the normal version of the game, but it's only visible when literally bringing it to your eye. And let me tell you, it feels so cool. I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse when I say this, but being able to look around a ledge is just awesome. I'm literally standing on the tips of my toes at this point to peek over the structure and get an angle at these grunts. The rest of the mission continued without consequence, but this happened for some reason. In VR. Unfortunately, you know, this is CE, so.
You're a sight for sore eyes,
What the f just happened?
I'll call in a drop ship to pick them up.
Okay. Something I learned during this mission is that you can actually shoot around a jackal's shield. If a pesky Kigyar is standing in front of you, ready to block your bullets, all you have to do is close the distance and aim around to pepper them in the side. I know that sounds obvious, but it's one of those things that you don't really think about until you actually do it in a VR space, and something that obviously wouldn't be possible in a normal version of the game. Sniping is also really difficult on occasion because my hands are oftentimes too shaky to hit my shots. I kept trying to hold my breath to steady my hands, but you're not really supposed to do that. You're technically supposed to shoot on the exhale, but that's also to account for some kind of kick, which obviously I don't feel when I'm playing a video game. I ran into the first real challenge at the base of the Truth and Reconciliation. This section pits you against wave after wave of Covenant forces and can be tricky normally, but put it into VR and it's made even more difficult. Generally, the strategy is to chuck a grenade into the center of the gravity lift right as each group of reinforcements makes their way to the ground, all the while utilizing a sniper to take out the elites. I employed that same playstyle here, but was having a slightly harder time making use of the sniper to do the heavy lifting. You see, killing the Sangheilies first tends to send the rest of the squad into a panic, turning them all into very easy targets. But the problem was, I kept missing my shots. After far too many sloppy deaths, I finally made my way into the belly of the beast, where things would get much, much worse. Son of a bitch. For truth? God damn it. To a degree. Why am I dying, man? Ah! Damn it! Like that. Oh no! Oh, I risked it and it shits on the novel a little bit. Oh my god. I'm gonna die. People get mad? I can't survive, dude. Please die. God damn it. I'm gonna die too. Oh man. Oh, they're spawning behind me. Whoa, 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 hey. God damn it. I'm gonna die. Damn it! Go wander and explore, like. An embarrassing amount of time later, and I finally made it to the hunters at the end of this sequence. Honestly, I had never been happier to see a pair of gigantic angry worm conglomerates than I was right here. Look at that, surgical. Oh, we're finally done. Thank goodness. I ran into a few really weird glitches throughout this run, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's just the gearbox port being shitty? Like, take this one, for example. Hey, pal. I've never seen that happen before. I had a really awesome moment in the hangar bay where I aggressively pushed on an elite with next to no health, but in so doing, almost got myself killed in the process. Thankfully, I managed to just barely survive because of a nearby overshield pickup. In the midst of my battle with the Sangheili, a couple of hunters spawned in behind me, creating one of the most tense situations I have ever experienced while playing Halo. By the way, fighting hunters in VR is one of the coolest things ever. Actually having to flip around and move over from their melee swing feels so badass. Oh, they're hitting each other. Ooh! Dude, I'm clutching this so good right now. Come on, motherfucker, let's go. Get shit on, bro. Aside from that, the rest of the mission was kind of just business as usual. The final section of the level where you're required to keep keys alive went pretty well, with little to no real issues. Well, barring this dipshit. Move, bro. Who threw that? Who threw that? God. Yeah, that was suicide, because you killed us all. The first issue I encountered with the Silent Cartographer was the Pelican Ride In. For some reason, this was super disorienting. The tracking on my head just felt funky and off. I'm not really sure how to articulate it. Just know that it was a bit sickening. Another problem that began to manifest itself was the fact that my feet had really started to hurt. I know that sounds ridiculous, so let me explain. My house is covered in hard tile, a material that's easy to clean but isn't great to stand on for long periods of time. This particular stream went on for 4 hours, which meant I was standing in place without ever sitting down for the entire duration. I know, boo-hoo, wah, what a baby. Let me explain, at least. Let me defend my case, okay? Hold your arm straight out, right? You can do that, it's no big deal. Now do that for 1 hour without ever setting it down. It sucks now, doesn't it? This is very similar. Also, in case you forgot, driving still sucks ass, therefore there's no shot of doing the door skip. If you know, you know. Instead, I decided to go straight for the security system that would normally lock you out of the map room, then jump off a nearby cliff to acquire a rocket launcher and skip a few waves of enemies. With that done, I headed towards the underground segments of the mission, unimpeded. We are, baby. It's time. Oh, the spanker. There was one skip that I couldn't resist giving a try, and it's the one where you fall down all the way to the bottom level from the platform that has a suspiciously placed rock on it. Normally, I have no issues performing this glitch, but for some reason, I just couldn't get the hang of doing it in VR. Something about truly seeing the scale of everything threw off my timing for when I should stop moving forward. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but that's the best explanation I've got. Regardless of the reasoning, I tried several times and ultimately decided to forego this strategy and press on through the level as intended. After fighting my way through a few waves, I decided I'd do the other half of the skip I mentioned earlier. This portion is way simpler, and as a result, I managed to pull it off first try. In case you didn't know, landing on an overshield negates 100% of fall damage, making what would normally be an ankle breaker of a drop a completely painless one. This led me right to the map room switch, which I promptly activated, then began my ascent back to the surface. Before leaving though, I found myself occasionally marveling at the depth of the structure. When you're playing the game normally, it's difficult to understand just how deep this hole actually is, but seeing it in VR remedies that, creating something that can be a bit dizzying. Shortly after staring into the yawning abyss, I made my way up to catch a pelican that then transports me back underground. At this point, I was ready to end the stream, but first I wanted to ride the Pelican in the beginning of Assault on the Control Room all the way down to an out-of-bounds area using a fun glitch. All that you need to do is mash the board vehicle button right as it drops you off. I did it easily, but for some reason, this happened before I could ride it down to the bottom of the nearby pit. I'm just gonna... Oh god! Oh god! Can you see this? Oh, holy shit, I'm not doing that. Whew. Oh my god, that was nauseating. I think I need a lie. I need a lie down. I don't know what's happening. Alright, we're going. See you later! This is actually fine. I'm comfortable. This works better than it does in the game normally. Normally the camera's all over the place right now. We're good. You didn't know you could get back in the Pelican, I bet? Let's see if we can survive to the bottom. I think you can in the gearbox port. I don't think there's anything to stop me from getting all the way down. I spoke too soon. The strategy I employed in the beginning of the mission is to quickly push towards the door right after the Pelican drops you off. Throwing a couple of grenades kills most of the upcoming adversaries and allows me to run through. Waiting too long leads to getting overrun, so it's best to be aggressive and squeeze your way into the tight corridors rather than duking it out where there's virtually no cover. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but being able to squat and on occasion crawl through small spaces is just so cool. It really changed how I approached certain encounters and made the experience all the more unique. I know I already said this as well, but fighting hunters is so cool. You! Come on! Suck it. Driving a Ghost also sucks, but it's a bit better than the Warthog. As crappy as the other vehicles are though, by far the biggest letdown of this entire mod is the tank. Thanks to the jankiness of driving vehicles, it's rendered almost completely useless, which is a damn shame because this is normally a very fun portion of the level, largely thanks to the Scorpion. Since I chose to avoid the treads of destruction, I decided it would be best to haul ass with a Ghost, which produced this crazy encounter that almost ended in an action movie sort of way, but fell flat. Oh my god, all the ghosts followed. Oh my god! I'm fucked with all these ghosts in here. Holy shit, they're flipping. I'm so screwed. I'm so screwed. I'm so screwed. Throwing all the nades, I'm so screwed. Oh my god. No way I survived this. Oh my god, more are coming. Why didn't the door open? Ah, why didn't the door open? Oh my god, dude, are you kidding me? At least the next attempt was successful, though not as cool looking. Okay, I know it opened that time. Get in the vehicle! I'm gonna die. Holy shit. Whew. While reviewing this footage, I'm watching it in 2x speed to save myself some time, and every once in a while, it just looks nuts. Take this sequence for example. Shortly after that section, I made my way back outside, hauled ass without fighting most of the enemies, then grabbed an active camo to haul ass a little more. Thanks to my stealth, I was able to make it into the next room that's literally overloaded with grunts and quietly kill them all in their sleep. Wow, doesn't work. Like right now. Me? Sometimes it just today. Many grunts. That should be all of them, but there might be a straggler. If there is, lucky him, because I'm out. Despite the amount of times I've played this, I learned something new during this playthrough. See this asshole? Yeah, well, I didn't. I had absolutely no idea an elite spawned up there, and it got me killed several times as a result. Any more? I swear I just saw movement up there. Oh my god, that elite, what the f? Dude, what? What? That is not, I swear that's not normal. I knew I saw a movement up there. Even with my sudden and apparent lack of knowledge, I moved outside once more onto one of the level's mid-air bridges. On it, I encountered another great example of how strategies can be different in VR. Because they can't hit me from this angle, but I can hit them. Oh, Needler's not doing you so good, huh, fellas? Speaking of these bridges, I had a hard time with the next one because I kept trying to employ a strategy where I jumped onto the really thin layer of unbreakable glass that borders the beginning and end of each walkway. Normally, this leap of faith is fairly easy to accomplish, but thanks to the jumping mechanics in VR, I kept falling to my death. I was eventually successful, but it took an annoying amount of time. 15 or so minutes later, I finally made it to the Banshee stealing segment, and I discovered something all too predictable. Driving the Banshee is utterly awful. Regardless, I used it to fly down, avoiding the nearby hostiles, and grabbed myself a ghost to perform one of my all-time favorite glitches. Using the momentum of the vehicle, I launched myself through the large door at the base of the big Forerunner structure in the area. If you time it just right and exit the ghost as you approach the portal, you can phase into the next room. All of the Covenant inside are completely dormant because their AI isn't activated until the switch to open the door is interacted with. This allows me to kill them all without consequence or just slip right on by to finish the level. With that mission done, it was time to begin the next. One of my favorite levels in the game, 343 Guilty Spark. Finally, it was time to see the Flood in VR. As a kid, I never found any of this to be particularly scary. I'm not really sure why. Something about having weapons to defend myself with kinda stripped away the fear for me. But with that said, I found myself oddly nervous for what was to come. Oh, I know I'm not saying much. I'm actually nervous. Holy shit. In case you're wondering, when I got to the crazy Marine, I opted to end his suffering. We put him out of his misery. I'm sorry, brother. The moment where the Chief watches the helmet cam footage of Wallace Jenkins was pretty glitchy in VR. It looked fine in the stream, but for me, there was a weird screen that displayed the cutscene overlaid on top of the actual sequence. It took me out of it a little bit. Once the infection forms showed up and started chowing on the Marines, I decided to get into character a bit. I was in the shoes of Jenkins after all. Okay, I'm supposed to be role-playing as Jenkins.
Sergeant, we're surrounded.
God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many,
Don't even think
can't.
about it, Marine.
Oh, this is local! Get back here, Marine. That's an order.
Jenkins!
Top tier voice acting on my part. The rest of the mission I spent doing what I would normally do, running like hell. Nothing particularly interesting happened on my way out, but I did take a moment to once again marvel at the scale of certain objects. In this case, 343 Guilty Spark himself. The dude is huge. The library was, well, the library. It's still the most boring mission in the series, but it's at least slightly better from this perspective. During this stream, I was wired the entire time too, meaning my headset was plugged into the wall to charge. I tried to charge it throughout the day, but for whatever reason, it didn't work, so I was forced to just get tangled up a bunch as a result. So if the headset drops to the ground and it sounds like I died in real life, that's why. For the most part, I didn't really have any interesting strategies and nothing funny or cool happened either. Aside from this weirdness, I suppose, I totally understand the necessity for the store. Like, ultimately, support for... Did you guys see that? He was just clipping. And, this. Oh my goodness! Oh my god! Oh, that scared the shit out of me. There is one neat little strategy that I utilize to avoid some enemies. I guess I'll let past me explain it briefly in case you've been living under a rock or are just new to the series, because it's one of the oldest tricks in the book. In case you guys don't know, you can just sit in this corner back here and none of the flood will see you. And I have no shame in doing this because there are so many flood forms. All in all, everything was going really well. I was blitzing through the mission with minimal deaths and was already nearing the final elevator at the conclusion when suddenly this happened. My headset died, and while I was scrambling to plug it in, it just snapped. Look at this shit. What kind of garbage build quality is this? I tried to tape it together to no avail, so I figured I'd have to get a hot glue gun and fix it that way, but fortunately, my dad let me borrow his Quest 3, so it wasn't necessary. Thanks, Dad. With that problem solved, I was free to continue my journey, and almost immediately after beginning, I encountered yet another really strange bug that I have never seen before in all my years. What is happening there? What is happening there? I have played this game truly uncountable amounts. Finished this game truly uncountable amount of times, and I've never seen this happen. It's not even... Are my bullets hitting it? Like they are, look. Dude, that is funky. Once I started 2 Betrayals, I had a sudden realization. I could exploit the fact that my hands don't have any collision by simply phasing them through the geometry and shooting on the other side. I didn't actually use this outside of this one instance though, because it felt a little too cheaty. I also had a bizarrely difficult time with the very first hallway for some reason. This is never a problem for me, so I don't know what was happening. It was embarrassing, to be honest. On my successful attempt, post-humiliation, I found this sentinel just wedged in the geometry for some reason. Very weird. Once again, I have never seen this happen before, which seems to be a general trend for this run. The biggest issue with this level though is the goddamn banshee controls. You have to drive them to finish, but it's such a terrible experience and it sucked the fun out of the mission whenever I had to. Dude. I also had a near-death experience too, when this gold elite decided to rush me and do weird shit that I've never seen an elite do before. Once again, something new. For the most part, this mission really was just business as usual. I didn't find any new strategies or utilize old ones that are worth mentioning. I died a lot though, but a large percentage of my deaths were stupid and vehicle related. Apparently my sanity was slipping too because it appears as if I was hallucinating. Poor little buddy didn't even do anything wrong. Dude, there's a banshee over there. There was just a banshee here. I swear to God, there was just a banshee here. Somebody's... Dude, someone else saw that, right? Despite the horrific banshee piloting, I somehow managed to pull this off first try and just completely avoid the largest group of enemies in the game. Funnily enough, it wasn't until Keys that I realized how the flashlight worked. It's a little glitchy, by the way, The beam is tied to my hand instead of my head, but if I'm facing the wrong way, it just doesn't provide illumination, or at least actual illumination? I'm not really sure how to describe it. Objects become whiter, but the environment itself isn't actually lit up. That doesn't sound like it makes any sense, but whatever. I don't really have anything else to report. I did stop to disapprovingly stare at Captain Key's pipe, though. A proto-Gravemind in VR is disgusting, by the way. The intro cutscene for the mall has always made me feel sad. The scoring and general atmosphere really amplify the hopeless state of the once great spacecraft, grounded forevermore. It was bittersweet to get here, too. Though it had been a challenge with a few hiccups here and there, it was overall a very fun experience. Those feelings were quickly usurped, though, thanks to this dumb shit.
Slipping through the floor. I'm too short, look. Shit.
Little did I know I'd need all the laughs I could get, because one of the most frustrating and difficult areas in this run was quickly approaching. Foreshadowing. Before I entered absolute hell, my stream got tapped by the FBI, aliens, or some shit. I still have no idea what this was, but I'm glad it got caught on camera. The Flood have started employing sonic weaponry, I guess.
What the f was that noise? Did that come through on the stream? That was so f***ing loud. Like a high-pitched shriek sound? The hell was that?
If you've somehow never played Halo CE before, well, you're in the wrong place, first of all, and you should definitely go do that. But on the off chance that that's actually the case, let me quickly explain the objective of this mission. My goal is to activate 4 switches, each of which will expose a hole that leads to the Pillar of Autumn's primary fusion reactor. Throwing grenades or shooting rockets into each of these pockets will trigger a self-destruct sequence big enough to destroy the entire Halo ring. It's not an instant explosion though, instead a countdown timer begins and the final segment of the game kicks off, the Warthog Run. Normally this climactic conclusion is a fun, high-stakes moment where you're tasked with driving through deteriorating parts of the ship against a rapidly depleting clock. But thanks to the god-awful Warthog controls in VR, this went from one of the highest moments in the game to the lowest. The shittiest part about all of this is that each failed attempt means a complete reset of the entire segment. There are no checkpoints in the middle. If I die, it's back to the beginning. On top of that, the timer just isn't visible in VR, so I had no idea how much longer I had before I exploded. It's tradition for me to visit the food nipple grunt at the end of every Halo CE run, but because I was blind time-wise and my speed was drastically reduced from the controls, I didn't want to risk it, sadly. After about 15 minutes of attempts that were very painful, I got to the final tunnel, and this happened.
What just happened? What just happened? Did we hard crash? Can you guys hear me? I still have audio. I think the game just completely hard crashed. I have a white screen. You gotta be f***ing joking. Dude.
Okay, let's try that again.
No crash. We made it past the crash point.
That's the ship! Move! We need to get aboard now!
Oh my god, Cortana is actually right in my ear. Oh no! Why?
Dude! We have a wildcat destabilization of the ship's fusion core. The engines must have sustained
Oh
more
my
damage than we
god!
thought.
Do you
Analyze
hear that,
it.
Elite?
We
No,
have 5 minutes
dude.
before the fusion drives detonate.
Oh my
we need
god.
To
One more time. Finally, with all the positive energy from chat and my raw skill,
We need to get aboard now!
Yeah, I think the Elite just died. I think he was the only problem. I think he... Oh my god. Oh my god. Holy shit, dude. Dude, my heart is pounding. Oh my god.
Come here, you mother...
Here we go. We waited for this moment.
Oh, this is it, baby. Hold me.
Go for the butt grab. There it is. Oh my god. Dude, I'm shaking. There's that lovely dual music track going at the same time.
Shut them down. We'll need them later.
Completely breaking the atmosphere.
I think we're just getting started.
Look. Come on, we can get an angle. Yes!
Well, I suppose that's all I've got. Thanks for watching. You know, this was a lot of fun. I'm not usually a streamer, but I had a really good time doing this, and everybody that tuned in, you guys are awesome. That was a lot of fun. I'd like to do this again for something else. I don't know what that'll be. I don't know what that'll look like, but expect something. For the meantime, thanks for watching. Do all the stuff YouTube likes, please. Like, comment, subscribe, all that bullshit. Share this video. Go watch another one too, because that looks good, I guess. I don't understand this shit. Anyways, I guess that's all I've got, and if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go play some Halo. Oh, you're slipping. Go. Be free. Run away. She is confused.